Hey, welcome to another episode of Amp Up Solar Talk. Today, we're diving into smarter home energy management with the ReliaHome Smart Panel from ABB. Joining us today is Johnathan Proffitt, here to share what makes this smart load panel unique and how it works with battery systems and what's ahead in residential energy control. If you're watching live, be sure and drop your questions in the chat. We'd love to include you in the conversation. Johnathan, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Hi,
much
Kelly.
for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here, and not just here for our show today, but you've been here with us all day today, training our team and ready to be answering customer questions to support our customers. So thanks so much for being here.
Well, it's been a great pleasure being here. Enjoyed meeting lots of the Signature Solar team, a lot of experts here, and really excited to share this information with the rest of the audience today.
Great. Well, let's get started. So talk to us about the background for those who are not familiar with ABB. Who is ABB and how do they get involved in the solar industry?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So a little company out of Zurich, Switzerland that some folks might have heard about, but ABB, we are over 100,000 employees globally, focused on a few primary business areas, one being electrification. That's where we are focused, but we also work in motion, robotics, automation. And here in the United States, we have our headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. And the product line in the business where I am focused is in residential energy management. We have an office in Charlottesville, Virginia, where we focus on cool and exciting products like this ABB ReliaHome Smart Panel. It's I guess their start in renewables probably goes way back before my time, and they touch a little bit of everything. I think at ABB with electrification, they always talk about we are source to socket. And what that means is that we are doing things as small as smart plugs, but as large as utility scale renewables balance of system components, low, medium voltage switchgear, modular substations, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, really everything across the spectrum of electrification and renewables. And it's just a really exciting space to be in and a very innovative company.
Right. So when we specifically talk about electrification with residential home energy storage, what specifically are we talking about?
Yeah. So when we talk about electrification with residential energy storage, we are primarily thinking about solar and battery energy storage systems, and we help with the integration of those systems into homes to make them more functional, usable, give the customer a better experience, and really get the most value out of those systems when they're being installed.
Okay. And when we're talking about electrification in general for homes, how does that add to the complexity of things?
So opposed to the renewable side where we're adding generation to a home, oftentimes we're also adding new loads, consumption. So whether it's building an all-electric home or renovating a home or just adding electrical devices or loads like EV chargers, that's the other side of residential energy management. We also help enable the sale and integration of those products in homes that would otherwise not be able to install those due to capacity limitations, both at the utility or at the panel level.
And so technology is growing and making that happen more and more every day.
Yes, absolutely. And we see applications for products like ours growing with the greater electrification trends, but also, like you said, the technology is just getting better and better to help solve some of these problems that we see in this space.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get into that, but tell us how you got to where you are today.
So I got my start in solar, 12 or 13 years ago. And kind of a funny story, actually, it was in graduate school. I had a supervisor who tricked me into building a flat plate solar collector, not knowing that it was actually going to get installed on his roof. I thought it was just, a hands-on learning, but it really triggered something inside of me. I thought this technology is so cool. It's something that, provides a real benefit. It's fun to work on. And from there, I've had, a few different roles in my career over the last 12 years or so. Just joined ABB in the end of March of this year. Prior to that, I spent about 3 years at SMA Solar Technology doing business development for home solutions. And then in 2018, I actually was one of the first commercial sales and business development employees for the company Lumen, which some folks might remember. It's actually the company that ABB acquired in January of this year. So also have worked for solar installation companies and even in nonprofit building solar and energy efficiency programs.
Nice. Now, before we move on, I do have to ask, you've got a shirt on that says ABB and NASCAR.
Oh, yeah.
That's intriguing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, intriguing to me as well. One of the reasons I find that there's always, such unique and exciting opportunities with companies like ABB. ABB is actually the sponsor for both Formula E as well as NASCAR's electrification prototype cars. And really, it's just one of the many things. I talked about source to socket earlier. It's one of the many ways that we are trying to build technology to really push forward electrification. And in this space, we're working on the transportation side.
That's really awesome and exciting too. ABB is known for their innovation. And so as we talk about electrical innovation, how did your team approach the user interface as they developed or got the ReliaHome Smart Panel from Lumen and looked at the app interface and the user interface? How did your team from ABB approach that?
Good question. So our team at ABB is really in the process, and I would say, ABB and Lumen are really one now. It was a merger, an acquisition and a merger.
Okay.
So the user interface was built before ABB acquired Lumen. It was this user interface that was actually used by ABB in a former version of this product, but have since really, I would say, adopted a similar perspective as what the original Lumen team had for the user interface, which was, I would say, twofold. It's customer and reliability. So when building this user interface, shout out to Ryan Mason, who's done an amazing job in building this user interface, have put together a product that's really user-friendly, allows for easy commissioning, but also is robust and reliable in that it doesn't necessarily depend on cloud connectivity. So we have the ability of getting this thing connected through Wi-Fi or through Ethernet. But then even if the cloud connectivity is lost, if internet is lost, users can still access in that user interface through the app, override any controls, still manually work with their user panel or with the ReliaHome Smart Panel through that user interface. And I think it's one of the things that's most unique about our product is that it doesn't necessarily depend on that cloud connectivity to operate, where programs are stored locally, but also accessed locally.
Okay. And I guess to really understand what the app is about, we really need to understand what this product is about. Can you give us a quick overview of what is this product? What does it do?
Yeah. So it does a lot of things, but I think if we were to really break it down to its core, it is an energy management system. It's specifically a UL 916 energy management system. And what it does is it allows for both the monitoring and control of individual circuit breakers. So it is available for both new construction and retrofit, but one of the things that is unique about it is that it's also agnostic to load centers. So what you see here is a circuit breaker panel behind us, and you have our ABB ReliaHome Smart Panel. This panel can connect to any existing load center. Doesn't matter what the maker model is.
So it doesn't replace a load panel.
It doesn't replace a load panel, exactly. So inside of our product, we have circuit boards and relays, and we have a conduit, and we have this pre-wired whip that can then connect to existing circuit breakers and really inject those circuit breakers with intelligence, as well as the ability to monitor and control those breakers.
Okay. And so how does it do that?
Yeah, good question. It's fairly simple, actually. So once we've connected to individual circuit breakers within a load center, we have a processor inside of our unit that we can store software on that allows for automations. And then we have an app that allows our user interface to connect to that panel. And then physically inside of our box, whether we've automatically set up a program or whether we're manually in a user interface telling a circuit to turn on or off through the app, it's really controlling a set of relays. And those relays are designed to connect to up to 12 circuits in a load center.
Okay.
So that could be 12 single pole, 120 volt circuits. It could be 6 dual pole, 240 volt circuits, or any combination of those two. We take the approach of controlling what matters. So we want to connect to the largest circuits in any distribution panel. And in the box, we have the ability of, we have 6 lines that are rated up to 60 amp, 6 lines that are rated up to 30 amps. And by connecting to those 12 line sets, we are oftentimes controlling, upwards of 80% of your energy consumption. Kind of the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your consumption by connecting to maybe 20% or even sometimes fewer number of circuits to get the most value out of the system.
Nice. So show me, or kind of describe to us, what does this look like in a real world scenario? Like, how would somebody connect this up to their home?
Yeah, so the installation process is fairly simple. And maybe to just kind of talk about system architecture for a moment, we often see our product being paired with renewable energy systems, solar and batteries. We often see our product being installed as an enabler for the addition of an electric vehicle charger or for a new construction build where it's all electric. Those are kind of the common configurations or use cases. But from just a physical perspective, we're really just simply mounting this hardware, the smart panel itself, somewhere in the close proximity of the distribution panel or the load center in which you want to control breakers. And then from there, there may be other variables that we're monitoring, like your service lines for whole home consumption. It comes with a set of 200 amp CTs. We may add an additional set of CTs, which are optional for your solar or your generation sources. And then the conductors that are physically wired into the box themselves, we're making very simple electrical connections to your existing circuit breakers. We're simply removing a load wire, installing one of our control wires, and then splicing or connecting on another control wire to that existing load wire. And so physically speaking, as electricity flows out of the breaker, it has to then first flow through our smart panel, go through our sensors, go through our relays, come back out another wire, and make its way off to the original load device, the load. If we programmed it to do absolutely nothing, it would be like a fancy junction box. But fortunately, we've got really cool applications and modes of operation that then make this very valuable for those customers who might be installing those EV chargers or have those renewable energy systems installed in their homes.
Right. And so you said we can connect up to 12 circuits, and we're connecting this to our larger circuits. I'm not just using this to say, oh, I forgot to turn off my lights when I left home, right? So we're not just saying I'm going to turn these off.
Yeah.
So talk to me more about what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, we're generally connecting to the largest circuits. Now, the use case of, oh, I'm forgetful, I forgot to turn something off, is a real use case for our product. There's countless folks I know of, did I turn my oven off? Yeah. And driving home and rushing to make sure that you're preventing a fire or something like that. Well, you can actually do that in the app as well. So you could say, oh, turns out I did turn my oven off, it's all good. Or, uh-oh, I didn't, but instead of turning the car around, just turn it off. You might have to reset the clock later, but if it's a safety concern, it's probably worth it. Not the primary use case, though. So what we do by connecting to those large circuits is that we're really managing demand.
Right.
We're also managing energy. So why do you want to manage demand? A lot of electrical panels are at capacity. And when you try to install a new electrical device, like an EV charger or an induction stovetop or a heat pump, the load calculations that are generally conducted by your electrician, or if you're doing these yourselves, if the NEC, the National Electric Code, the way in which we conduct those load calculations through Article 220 or one of the other articles states that those load calculations exceed the panel capacity, then by connecting those large circuits, we can actually lower the demand power so that we stay below whatever that panel is rated for. And it is a code compliant way of doing so. So we can set a limit through our smart panel where your panel will never exceed a set limit. And that's a code compliant alternative to upgrading that main panel so that it would have that capacity to install those devices. Similarly, with solar and battery systems, we know that they have continuous power limits. The inverter itself oftentimes can't provide the full power for whatever load it's connected to.
Right.
And in those cases, we can also manage your demand. So you can set a limit based on the wattage of the continuous power output, and then prioritize your circuits so that you're not exceeding whatever that inverter is rated for and tripping it. And then really the third thing I would say with batteries, we also, when we have an integration with an ESS provider, like EG4 or Franklin Whole Home or Tesla or Enphase or SolarEdge, we can also monitor state of charge and then individually set circuit breakers to be shed based on a state of charge level.
Okay. So it helps to manage those loads that don't have to be running at certain times so that it can manage your
Yeah.
other loads that do need to be running.
Yeah. In simpler terms, it enables whole home backup for
Uh-huh.
energy storage systems, extends battery runtime, and then on the electrification side, it's helping to avoid main panel upgrades or utility service upsizing when, an additional load would otherwise necessitate that.
Which is also saving money.
Yes, those, main panel upgrades and service upgrades can be really costly. I think main panel upgrades are, upwards of $3,000 typically. And that doesn't even include the utility side of it. If the utility is going to pass on costs to the customer for, service conductors, upsizing, any work that needs to be done on the ground or above on the poles, or even a transformer upgrading, then those costs can go, upwards of $25,000 we've seen. So this is in many ways, paying for itself the day it's installed if the alternative is having to do one of those more costly upgrades.
Sure. Okay. So how long does something like this take to install? If you're just changing out 12 circuits potentially, how long would that take?
Yeah. Like most projects, it depends on the site conditions, but generally speaking, we see installers, contractors putting these in, hour and a half, 2 hours is kind of average. I've seen other folks put these in 45 minutes, and I've seen, projects where, perhaps wires need to get extended. Maybe there's multiple panels where they've gotten, drawn out a bit longer. But if we were to look at it with averages, I'd, generally say about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
That's not bad at all. That's a pretty quick install. We do have a question from Jeff Duffy. He wants to know, is this DIY friendly or is an installer required?
It's a good question. So I do think that the installation is fairly simple. And with DIYers, regardless of whether they're a professional installer or a contractor or electrician or just a homeowner who is interested in installing their own equipment, we always recommend getting training. And we have a lot of available resources for our customers, whether they're DIYers, installers, electricians, builders, whoever. Those materials can be found on our website. If you want to look that up, it's ABB ReliaHome. Or you can reach out to us and we can make available some of our what we call certified installer training. On the renewable side.
Is that free?
It is. Yeah. Okay. So for any of our customers, anybody who is purchasing this, whether it be through our distribution partners or through one of distribution partners installers, whomever is ultimately getting their hands on this product has access to that training. On the renewable side, I would say it's strongly encouraged to do that certified installer training. On the panel guard side, which is the name for the mode of operation for electrification, avoiding main panel upgrades and utility service upsizing. When going that route and using our product for that application, it is a requirement to get qualified. So because we are now preventing the busing of your load center from being overloaded, there's some safety implications, and we do require that those installers are certified. And we have a similar training for that, where we are going to log your information and make sure that you have access to our panel guard after you've gone through the training.
Great. So training is for safety purposes, so make sure you go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. For electrification side of it. For renewables, less of a requirement, but more of a strongly encouraged. And the way I look at it, why not, right? If it's free and it's available, get the resources, make sure that you're reading the manual, of course, and you're just setting yourself up for a better installation experience.
For sure. Let's talk about some more of the features that are offered through the ReliaHome Smart Panel. We've got Off-Grid Manager and we've got load scheduling. Talk to us about how those work.
Okay, so Off-Grid Manager is the name of the mode of operation when your smart panel is managing a solar and energy storage system. So I spoke about this earlier, but once our product is installed, connected to the circuits that you feel you need to most manage. From there, you are programming our smart panel through our application, web or mobile, to essentially shed undesirable circuits, manage circuits that you may want to keep on, and then, of course, if you've connected it to some circuits that you always want to leave on, you can essentially set those as essentials or do not touch. We're also setting a power limit based on what your inverter can provide. And then if we have the integration, so if it's being installed with one of those energy storage systems that I mentioned earlier, we're also pairing it with that energy storage system so that we can read state of charge and then manage your consumption based on state of charge readings from the inverter or the hybrid inverter or battery energy storage system. What this effect does is gives the customer full control over their energy consumption during an outage, which is critical. Or if it's an off-grid, it's almost a a built-in redundancy to protect that system from failing, from getting overloaded both on the power or being drained too quickly. What we often see with battery backup systems, especially if they're whole home backup systems, is that the customer at the end of the day is left with a battery that just isn't running as long as they want it to. And if load management is not there, there could be circuits like an EV charger where stationary battery is fully charged, power outage occurs at night, and all of a sudden you're draining this perfectly usable battery into perhaps your car battery that's not going to help you make your coffee in the morning, right? So having some protections in place we feel like is really important, especially if installing whole home backup. And that's what our off-grid manager enables for the renewables and energy storage customers.
Right. Nobody wants to run out of battery when they need it most. Right. What about the load scheduling?
And load scheduling. I'm glad you mentioned that as well. So regardless if you have solar, storage, or even installing more electrical loads, there is value in just having energy management in your home. So I would say it's more pronounced when you might be in a market with variable electricity rates, like a time of use rate, like our friends in California, or maybe in North Carolina, or anywhere else where we're starting to see the price of electricity fluctuate based on time of day. I think there's probably a lot of providers here in Texas that are offering time of use rates or real-time pricing rates as well. So if you're in a rate structure where you want to avoid consuming a lot of energy due to high energy pricing, you can use our smart panel again to just create simple schedules. So going into our app and saying, during middle of the afternoon, during peak time of use rates, let's make sure my water heater just doesn't cycle on. It's not like I'm taking hot showers in the middle of the day. So there's applications there that can lead to bill savings and just increased efficiency within your home to maybe avoid some of those peak TOU rates. Or even vampire loads. That's another side of it. So there are certain things that just seem to run nonstop. Savings might not be as great when you're just trying to get rid of certain small energy consumption, but if you happen to have it plugged in and know that it's consuming when it doesn't need to be, why not turn it off when you're not using it?
Right, that makes sense. I've never heard vampire loads, but that totally makes sense.
So
I like that name.
I had a schedule on my own Lumen Panner that I called Vampire Slayer affectionately, and it would just turn off all of my office circuits when I knew I wouldn't be working in the middle of the night, because I had a lot of monitors, because I have a desk that has a motor on it that's just constantly sucking a little bit of energy regardless of whether I'm using it. I just schedule it all to turn off in the middle of the night. Save me a few cents each night, but also conserve some energy.
Great idea. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about smart energy management or the ReliaHome smart panel?
Yeah, there's a few. I think the technology itself, like the hardware, is fairly simple. I think most folks, once they get a chance to see it and kind of understand how it works, those misconceptions go away. But one of the ones that I would mention, we see most often is it a load center? And the answer to that question is no. We talked about this a little bit earlier, right? There are no breakers in here. It is not replacing an existing load center. There are products in the market like that, some of which are great products. But our product is not designed to replace a load center. It's really designed to take that tried and true load panel that works and enhance it, to give it smarts, to give it intelligence, to allow you to control breakers that you would otherwise not be able to. Another misconception we sometimes hear is, is it a battery itself or an inverter, or does it have some sort of power source built into it? And the answer to that one is no as well, right? So we are here strictly as an energy management system, not necessarily as a battery or an inverter. I think because our product is so often paired with energy storage systems, some folks think that maybe it contributes to the system, contributes some generation. The only product that we have as an accessory that maybe would qualify would be we have a temporary power unit. So our product also pairs with generators. It doesn't necessarily have to be a battery. But if your battery or your generator maybe has a longer transfer time, so if there's an outage or it's transferring the load over to the secondary source and that transfer takes more than a few seconds, we have a temporary power unit, which is essentially a box full of capacitors that connects to our smart panel, allows it to ride through that transition at least long enough to shed certain circuits to help your battery in a black start condition, or help your generator get started when it's ready to connect to the load. So while we are not a battery, we are not an inverter, we're not really a generation source, we can help and enable and optimize secondary power sources. And so that's a misconception we sometimes get as well.
Great. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Jeff Duffy also wanted to know, does this only work with battery backup, or can a generator be used with this? So I think
great question.
You answered that. Yeah. So, we've heard of other things that do similar things like the ReliaHome smart panel. We've heard of the span panel. We've heard of smart breakers, which are probably maybe cheaper and seem easier to install. Why the ReliaHome smart panel? What makes it different or better? Why would we choose this over those?
Well, first I'll say that there are a lot of products entering the market. Some have been around for a while, others not so much. And like most products and kind of industries, there are benefits and drawbacks of each. There's a lot of room in this space, I think, for innovation. So it's great to see new products coming online. When I think about these products, I kind of break them into categories, right? We have, like you mentioned, smart breakers. We have fully integrated smart panels that are, provided by a manufacturer, that are head to toe, built by that manufacturer. And, maybe the load center, the busing is all built, the relays are built, and then, the breakers are put into it. That would be like the full load center smart panel. We also have on the other end of the spectrum things like circuit splitters. These are essentially devices that allow two loads to share a circuit, but only one of them is going to operate at a time. So you mentioned cost effectiveness, right? So products like circuit splitters, or even a smart breaker, if it's just an individual smart breaker, are going to come in that are a little bit cheaper. But are they going to provide the right user experience? Are they going to be able to meet the application that you want to install it? And so I think a lot of research really needs to be done there if that's the avenue that one is going to take. Smart breakers are not smart until they have connection to some processor. So if it's just a breaker, like, it's not going to do much. It could connect to the internet, but then it needs to have a central processing unit somewhere that tells it what to do. If it's a splitter, it may do what you want it to do, but there might not be an app associated with it. So are you going to get the data? Are you going to get the monitoring, the controls? Are you going to know why your EV charger isn't charging your car, why your dryer isn't drying your clothes? The transparency and the control won't be there with some of the lower cost options. And then on the other end of the spectrum, with these fully integrated smart panels that do include busing, breakers, enclosures, they tend to be more expensive. And in many times I see diminishing returns when you're trying to connect to certain circuit breakers that are not energy hungry, or not heavy power demands associated with them. So we see ourselves as kind of in a sweet spot where you are not replacing a panel, which is also very labor intensive and costly, to provide a lot of value by controlling what matters, controlling those circuits that are most energy hungry, and then also providing the customer with the user experience and the user interface to really have full control over their energy consumption, and transparency in the event that we have an automation that may be turning circuits on and off from time to time. You want to know when that's happening. You want to see the event history perhaps, and you want something that's minimally disruptive to your home. And we can do that when we're able to connect to up to 12 circuits, and oftentimes really lower the disruption in the home when integrating some of these renewables or electrical devices in a home.
Right. Well, that sounds really, really great to me. And Johnathan, I thank you for being here today, and for training our team, and for giving us an inside look into the ReliaHome smart panel, but also into ABB's vision into smart home energy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Absolutely. And to all of you tuning in, if you would like to learn more about the ReliaHome smart panel, or are thinking about adding this product to your home or your solar and battery system, we will have some more information on our site very soon in the next coming weeks. You can check us out at signaturesolar.com. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and follow so you don't miss our next episode of Amp Up Solar Talk. We'll see you next time.